What does it take to change the game? To disrupt the norm? To leave a lasting impact? Welcome to Game Changers, the podcast where we dive deep in the minds of the innovators, thinkers, and doers. These are the stories of resilience, vision, and change. Real models, real impact, real game changers. Join the conversation and let's inspire the next generation together. Welcome to Game Changers. My name is Basharat. I'm a founder and CEO of our Community Foundation. We're a youth-led charity here based in the east of Birmingham, and we help young people to unlock their potential. Today we've got Richard Parker here, who's a strategy expert, a visionary, and the Mayor of the West Midlands. Richard, welcome to Game Changers.
No, thanks. It's great to be here, Basharat. And I know we met a couple of years ago. In fact, probably more than 10 years ago initially. Yeah. But it's been great to meet you again. And thank you for inviting me here.
Fantastic. So what I want to do today, Richard, is a lot of people already know you've been 1 year already in service, 1 year already. So time does fly. I'm sure you appreciate that. They know you as the Mayor of the West Midlands. But I want to really find out about the real Richard. Who is Richard Parker really? Okay. So let's start from your journey, really, how you all began, your childhood and you actually growing up.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very white working class bit of Bristol. My dad was a docker, my mum a school secretary. Both of them had left school, I think, when they were 14. And they were very supportive, but it was quite a very working class place. I went to local primary school and comprehensive. Left school with some decent O-levels, but I went to a school where back then hardly anyone went to university, if anyone, maybe the odd son and daughter of a senior teacher. So I left school with some decent O-levels, worked for one of the local businesses near where I lived in Avonmouth in Bristol. And but it was when I was there that I was working with someone who took me aside one day and just said, why isn't someone like you, at university or going to university? And I said that I really didn't know anyone who went to university. And that person encouraged me to go back to a further education college in North Bristol to look around. And they encouraged me to go back into education to do A-levels. So I spent a couple of years doing some A-levels. I had some part-time jobs at weekends so I could afford to go out socially. And that insight in me, that mentoring, that support, that encouragement, that belief changed my life because I went on to do A-levels. I went to university, did economics degree. And then I moved to the West Midlands for my first job in 1985, 86. And I've been here ever since, over 40 years. I trained as an accountant at PwC, and I didn't really want to be an accountant, but I just thought if I got a professional qualification, it would give me choices in life. And where I came from, frankly, people didn't have choices, and to have choices about what you do in your life is probably the biggest privilege that education gives you. And I was very, very lucky. Those choices they gave me at PwC was to do different things. I spent almost 30 years working, or 30 years at PwC working, and I became a partner in the advisory business. I worked on major infrastructure projects domestically and advised governments all over the world. In fact, and the last job I did at PwC was actually putting the combined authority together. So I was part of a team that created the combined authority, of which is the organisation supports me. So I've almost come full circle, but I had a fantastic career. I worked with great people. I met and worked with fantastic people, and I have opportunities that have give me the ability to sort of change my life, and that was very important to me. And I'm very happy and settled in the West Midlands. My wife was a lawyer here. My son is currently working in the aerospace industry in the Black Country, and I love this place. It was because of the work I did when I was a partner at PwC, working with Labour politicians at a senior level, the contacts and relationships I built and the work that I did when I wasn't working that led to me, standing for election as mayor.
Wow. So if I can just take you back before we come on to the political side. So you talked about mentorship. I think that's really, really important. So do you feel if you never had that at the time, you probably wouldn't have gone to college or university at that stage?
No, and I think there is, well, firstly, it's my experiences, my personal experiences are the reason why investing in our young people, helping our young people access skills that will give them work and well-paid work and start them on that journey, that a career journey is so important to me. And too many young people in Birmingham, in this part of Birmingham, in the West Midlands, don't have those opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah.
But no, look, when we're young and we're developing, our understanding is often informed by the world around us, immediately around us. And if that world around us doesn't contain those role models or those icons or those people that give us a sense of direction and purpose, it's very difficult to find your own way. And so I was very lucky. I had a very stable family who gave me that stable background. But people I met on that journey who had higher aspirations and ambitions, including the close friends I met when I was doing my A-levels, and the insight I gave, I suppose, the exposure I had to people who came from very different backgrounds, who had a clear sense of ambition, a sense of purpose, and a self-belief, by the way, and confidence that they could succeed. Those people helped inform me about sort of the opportunities ahead. But without mentoring around, all, when I was growing up young, I couldn't have succeeded. But I also, and I think, I had fantastic mentors and people that stood up for me and advocated for me throughout my career. When I was at PwC, I truly couldn't have made it to be a partner unless I had senior people around me that helped me succeed. They put me on major projects. They gave me exposure to different situations. That was all incredibly helpful. And indeed, in the journey I made from the world of PwC and professional life into politics has required another group of mentors that have helped me transition and support me. So I am, and I'll say to anyone, never be afraid to ask for advice or guidance from people around you, because the insight and the understanding and the experience, the shared experience you can benefit from can be enormous, have great impact, and be really beneficial.
Absolutely, because I think, you mentioned role models, and we've just done a new strategy framework. We've shared that with you previously. And rather than role models, we've called them real models. So when we work with the young people from East Birmingham for the last 2 years, see, a role model could be somebody in this particular area, a local drug dealer, somebody with a flashy car, somebody who does really well online and doesn't really talk sense, but people feel that, we can relate with that. So we've got to make sure there's clarity between a role model and a real model. So what we've done is, as part of our strategy, we work with real models, and part of this Game Changers framework and the actual Game Changers podcast is about getting real models in front of young people and to ensure that they can then relate and engage and learn from. What you said earlier really, really brought it home, because not just from a young person where you got the mentorship of, think about this, or you've got the ability, you've got that, you can do this, you've got that belief. Somebody can just give you a bit of a guidance, a push to move you in the right direction. But it's never sort of stops, does it? Because when you go on to real working lives, you need people around you to support and guide you. You need that mentorship, you need at a senior level at PwC. And even when we'll talk about politics later, but when you're at that stage, you still need people around you and the right people around you to mentor, to guide you. Is that right?
No, 100%. And I think, and those people, it's not just about the advice they give you. I'm a great believer in values, having the right values and the right behaviours. And those are things that drive me. And so those people around you that you derive insight from and share experience, for me, it's not just about advice on do this or don't do that or approach it this way. It's also about the underlying set of beliefs and values about what's right and wrong, and how you respect other people and the empathy you build. And I think, my approach to life was informed by, a character in one of my favourite books, To Kill a Mockingbird. There's a lawyer in there, Atticus Finch, and it was truly about, if you want to stand other people, you need to sort of stand in their shoes, and I think to understand them, and that for me sort of drives the way I do things. I want to approach things. But for me, being driven by a very clear set of values and behaviours about what's right and wrong and how we respect other people is really, really important. The issue then about you've touched on around people around you, I've been really clear. It was important to me when I was young. It was important to me when I was at PwC. It's even more important to me now that the best way I can succeed is having the best people around me. And so having that team of people around me that can speak openly to me, give me advice in a constructive way, but those set of people I can have truly honest conversations with about what we do, how we approach things, how we behave is really important. But I would say for every one of those people around me, it's so important that they have the right values and they deploy the right behaviours. I need them to be competent and really capable, but those values and behaviours are really, really important to me. And if we get that right, I think we can get everything else right. But there's also something, I think, for our young people that there's also something about building resilience and confidence too, because all those other things are important, but we do need to find in ourselves and sometimes dig deep at time, because not a lot of the time things don't go the way we want them. The world isn't perfect. Life can be tough at times. And you have to dig deep, and finding a way to help our people, particularly our young people, build that resilience is so important to building success, which means that if you have a bad day or a bad experience or a bad conversation, or a personal or family friendship isn't working well, that you're able to get through it and find a way through it. And the most difficult thing, of course, is that it's difficult to teach resilience. It's a very personal thing.
Yeah.
But we learn most about ourselves when things are not going well.
Yeah.
And we sometimes it's just helping people work out how they get through those times. That's really important. And the other issue, I think, particularly for our young people, is around helping them build that self-belief and self-confidence, because it's impossible for other people to have confidence in you if you're not confident in yourself. Both those things, confidence and resilience, are very easy things to talk about, but they are so important that our young people, particularly our young people from places where we are today, build that inner confidence, that self-belief and that resilience, because if they can do that, there really should be nothing preventing them from making the most of themselves and the best of themselves.
Absolutely. I think it's a personal experience as well, because sometimes it sort of makes or breaks you as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So depending on what the circumstances were, unfortunately, some people can't recover from it. Some people build from that, and then they're sort of untouchable, aren't they? So just going back a bit again, you mentioned about you went into accountancy. So was that something you were really good at? What made you go into accountancy, and how did that sort of happen?
Yeah, so not by chance. I wanted, at that time, I thought, a career in finance, and I thought where making decisions about things were really important, and no aspirations about politics when I was a young kid. But I was really clear that I just thought if I got a professional grounding in something, I could use that, to build a platform to do other things. So I was hoping that professional qualification would give me opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise had, because those, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, they give you a recognition, and those qualifications have a status. So that was it, really. I didn't really enjoy it. I can't say ever, because I worked with some great people, but for me, it really was using it as a platform. I quite, actually, you talk about resilience. I talk about resilience. Actually, sitting down for 3 years studying, accounting exams, is a test of. It's a test of.
That's resilience.
Of resilience, indeed. But studying for those exams and working in organisations, PwC, also teaches you a lot about yourself, about how you conduct yourself, how you approach problem solving, how you work with other people, how you work with teams. And that was really, really important. But we're also encouraged to think, creatively and naturally. And I think for me, having got that qualification, and if you think about accounting in its purest sense, that if you're looking at numbers and accounts, you're often reporting on what's happened in the past. So you're looking at putting numbers together to reflect activities that have taken the previous year, and you're putting into a numerical financial form. I quickly realised that I was less interested in putting numbers down to describe what happened in the past. I was more interested in how we approach the future. So how we develop projects, how I help my clients move from where they are today to where they wanted to be. So I quite quickly realised after getting my qualification that rather than be interested in working on accounting issues about things that happened in the past, I was far more interested in problem solving or shaping the future. So I sort of transitioned out of doing accounting roles into doing more advisory roles, to help my clients think strategically, plan projects, and develop business plans about the future, as opposed to number crunching on what happened in the previous 12 months or so.
So was that something from within yourself, or I mean, because normally people think, I've got an accounting job, I'm updating a spreadsheet, or I'm doing the forecast, or I'm running the accounts, audit, or whatever it is, done. But for you, you were thinking, actually, no, I'm thinking, future. So was that just inbuilt, or where did that just come from? Or
I think it was. It was probably, it would have been inbuilt, I think. But there is always, it's also about where people are different, and that's good. Differences are important, and respect those differences. And there are many of my friends that I qualified with that were very happy in those financial roles, and they got a sense of purpose at it. I was always far more interested in the future than I was with the past, I think. And it may be why I've always been interested in politics as well, about how we do things better and make a difference. But so I was probably just made that way, where I was more interested in how we could use numbers to shape the future. But I would say that having the professional discipline and understanding numbers about how you build business cases, you use numbers to build a case, how all the things we want to do always have constraints around them, and often those constraints are the money we've got to spend or we can allocate to something, and that gets you in a position of having to make choices about how you use the money you've got. Understanding those aspects of making choices, how to build business cases, and analyse numbers have benefited me ever since. And indeed, quite unusual for a politician. I mean, 2 Sundays ago, I spent probably 4 hours one afternoon going through, financial reports on transport funding in the West Midlands over the last 8 years. So
it's a good job you know what you're doing.
Well, no, I'm not sure I do. No, but there's me. I'm trying to sort of learn this new profession, but sometimes the nature of the job does mean you have to go back, and get under the detail.
See, I described you as a visionary, so I was right then, because it's inbuilt. It happened a long time ago.
You say that, but one of the other mayors, Tracy Braben, the Mayor of West Yorkshire, she calls me the boffin mayor, and so I'm trying to be this. But truly, I think I have got a very clear vision about the future, improving people's lives. But there are times when you have to draw on your previous professional experience to do stuff, and I think getting those to work in tandem is what I want to do, and probably what I want to do a bit better.
Let's talk about the West Midlands Combined Authority. So obviously, you got the role, you worked with the team, I take you to sort of create the authority. So tell us a bit sort of how that happened and what was your role in actually pulling it all together.
Yeah, so I was a partner at PwC working on major infrastructure projects. I come back, I started to work more on some public sector projects, and we had some approaches to say that the councils in the West Midlands were planned to put a combined authority together, so there could be a mayor and more devolved funding into the region. And I knew some of the chief executives. We pitched for the work, explained how we would do it, and I spent probably close to 18 months leading a team of advisors that worked with the 7 council leaders at the time and the 7 chief executives to create the platform for creating the combined authority. It was quite complicated. Not all the leaders were in the same place, or their chief executives. And I do remember a very important meeting we had privately, probably April 2014, when we met, and I chaired a meeting of all the council leaders, a meeting room in the Hotel de Van, and we met to discuss whether or not the leaders of the 7 councils in West Midlands would want to work collectively to create a combined
Wow, okay.
authority. And we made enormous amount of progress that day, to the extent by the end of the day, we'd agreed a set of principles they would subscribe to and the way they wanted to work
Wow.
together. What we didn't agree at that meeting is what we should call the combined
Yeah,
authority, and whether or not those leaders would support there being elected mayor in the region. Actually, it was toward 2015, because a few weeks later there was a general election, that summer, and when the majority Conservative government was elected, and it was clear that they wanted more devolution, the council leaders immediately said, "We will support." This. So, and then I worked on with the chief execs across the region, and others, to put the foundations in place to create the combined authority. And of course, the first mayor elections were a year later in May 2016.
Wow. So from creating the command authority, then you've got your political, background. So talk about a bit about your politics. Where did that sort of start then in the midst of everything that you were doing before we get on to the...
Against this, there wasn't another life there at all. But I joined the Labour Party when I was a teenager.
Wow,
And I joined because my experiences at the FE College sort of politicised me a bit. So I worked with lots of people who from quite middle class backgrounds, and I worked with them and they became friends. But what I just contrasted their ambitions and their self-belief about their futures compared to the ambitions and the types of futures of young people where I lived had. And I just, what was clear to me was that there was this normal gap and inequality in access to opportunity, and that politicised me. And I came to the view that the party that wanted to deal with those issues and face the most up front of all the parties was the Labour Party. So I joined the party then. Through my business career, I wasn't and couldn't be that politically active, but people throughout my career would have known my views and my values and what my politics were, without it being stamped on my forehead. But I also, when I was at PwC, worked on lots of projects, infrastructure projects being delivered by the Labour government in 1997 to 2010. And you build up some friendships with people working on those programmes, advisors and others. And then in 2010, the head of PwC approached me and said he wanted partners in the firm to take the responsibility of leading on the relationships with each of the main parties. Now, he'd been made aware of that I had some good connections across the Labour Party, and he asked me in 2010 to manage the relationship between the firm and the Labour opposition. So I got to know during that time, and I would spend a day to 2 days a week with the shadow cabinet working under Ed Miliband's leadership. So I developed good friendships with quite a number of members of the shadow cabinet under Ed Miliband, and indeed some of my colleagues at PwC who went on secondment in those roles are now Labour MPs. So so we just started to to develop those relationships. I had no interest in going to politics at that time, although I was approached once and twice about being an MP. But I was enjoying my work. I always saw myself as an advisor and enjoyed working behind the scenes, and that was thoroughly enjoyable. So those relationships which I built then, and many still got today, and some of those people are now running the country, which is great. But I built up some good friendships. During that time, I was asked to chair the West Midlands Labour Finance and Industry Group, which is a bridgehead between the Labour Party in the region and businesses, which was great. And then during, I suppose around three years ago, people started to have conversations with me about, I've got the business experience, the knowledge of politics, that, and I put the combined authority together, so I understood how devolution worked. That I'd be someone that would be a good candidate for
Absolutely.
standing for mayor, and I was really clear at that time that I thought it was time for a woman to do it,
Yeah.
and also that I would never get in the way of a friend or anyone else who was a politician that wanted to do it, because at that time I thought that there are others whose careers depended on this and mine didn't. But during that process of talking to lots of people, sounding folks out, starting to understand the role more, I had lots of support from people across the region, and I decided to make a big step to put my name forward to be the Labour candidate, and I'm very pleased I did. But I couldn't have done it again with lots of support, and I talked to lots of people through that process. I was also learning about a new job and a new profession,
course, yeah.
which was all new to me. A very steep learning curve, and there were setbacks along the way. But I built many friendships during that period, and it was very, very important time. And but also I went into it because I had lots of encouragement, and I never wanted to go through life with having any regrets about not having done it. And I just thought I'd never forgive myself with some of the backing I had not to put my name forward. I did, though, at the same time have a view that this region needed a new type of leadership. A leadership was about improving the lives of people in the region, making a difference to people who live in places like this, and ensuring that those communities that have been overlooked, in my view, overlooked and left behind for too long, are given a presence, a priority that they'd not had under the previous mayor.
So, I'd call it a game-changing moment, because when you stood for the election, you were up against Andy Street, who's been, 2 terms, going into the 3rd term, a well-known name, established, difficult time in terms of international politics, and yet you won the election. And I think that was a game-changing moment, for the region, for the West Midlands region.
Yeah.
So going into it, how did you feel in terms of the election campaign? Because it's totally different to what you used to before. Because I can imagine campaigning, door knocking, and it's not just a local area or locality. You're looking at the West Midlands region and beyond, aren't you?
No.
So talk a bit about how you felt in that process, and then eventually actually winning the election.
So, look, I had to get through a selection process, which was first, which was a very good introduction to politics for me, if you like. And also, I'd just like to say, whilst it was right that I went through a selection, a very important process to get backing of Labour members in the region, but it was a very respectful selection process, and I got the highest regard for the 2 folks I stood against, and then the final candidate in the final round. But I loved every minute of campaigning, and there's something about this role, given what I've done before, that is very liberating. I loved my career in business, but going out and campaigning on things and issues that you truly believe in, without the constraints about what you can say, because were really important to me, and I enjoyed every moment of it. We knew it was going to be tough. There's still only one incumbent mayor who's ever lost an election, and that is Andy Street.
Yeah.
We knew that he had a high profile. I wouldn't say he was popular. I beat him, but he had a high profile, and we know that that at that time I hadn't got into politics, so I was relatively unknown, and we worked as a team incredibly hard, and I didn't want any regrets about this, and I certainly didn't want any regrets if I was to lose, that I hadn't won because we hadn't worked hard enough.
Yeah.
So I was at every day for a year, working hard, knocking doors, speaking to people, learning this new profession, getting the message across, with fantastic support regionally and nationally. And there's only one. I just took one day at a time. I got my diary for the next day. Would campaign from 9 in the morning to 9 at night,
Wow.
and then go to bed, get up in the morning.
Start again.
We go again. Where do we go now? And very honestly, I just worked relentlessly at it and didn't even think about the election. I just take one day at a time, trust the people around me. There were I think some very important moments. I would probably say two stood out for me during that time. Well, three things stood out for that time is because campaigning takes you into communities one you wouldn't go to unless you were campaigning. And what struck me was people wanted change and didn't believe that the previous mayor was standing up for them or wasn't talking to them. The things he talked about wasn't the thing that was priority for them. And that came across. Also, in many of our communities, the loss of hope about having a better future. Times have been hard, jobs have been lost, and what was the future in this place for my kids or whatever. So that was pretty clear. And I would say that experience of door knocking radicalised me. Not my own politics that are pretty mainstream Labour, but in terms of the interventions we needed to make a difference and how we needed to make young people, a priority. The second big moment I think was I did a like a question time, election question time for local BBC, like that was a big moment. It's the first time I've gone on national TV against the other candidates, and I got through it intact and actually it's come out reasonably well. And I thought that was a big statement about, and that was the first opportunity I had more broadly to speak to a wider audience about my priorities and why I was going to be a different mayor, to Andy Street, and why there were choices that people had. This wasn't just a mayoral role that's anodyne, but there were very, very different set of priorities that I had, and that was a big moment for me personally. The third big moment was the Tuesday before the election. I sat in the Regional Labour Party office with the regional director, who was brilliantly supportive of me, and some senior people from London. And I just wanted to know, because I'm not stood for election, what the rest of the week would be like. And they sat down with me and said, this is what it looks like, but also we think there's 1% in it. And for the first time, campaigning, my legs went to jelly for about 24 hours when I realised that, we were on the cusp of something seismic, but it was still too close to call. And that meeting was a really important meeting for me. You have to pull yourself together, which I did, and just go out and do your very best. But the support I had was phenomenal. On the day itself, on election day, the 2nd of May last year, we knocked 71,000 doors across the West Midlands. And I met people in campaign centres from Aberdeen, from Anglesey, from all over the country, all over the country, and that was phenomenal. And my sister came down from Manchester. She lives in Manchester. She said she had to go at 6 o'clock to vote for Andy Burnham. I said, I need your votes more. So stay here, give me another hour. But no, we worked really, really hard, and that effort, and that's something else for people around, is that sometimes, to get the results we want, it is just hard work. And I won by 1,500 votes, and there were 1,500 ballot boxes. So just one vote on each ballot box made that difference. And that just shows that whatever you're doing, give it your most. Don't give in. Keep going forward. And if you work hard, you earn the right to succeed.
I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, when we talk about mayors and people think, just somebody who's been as part of the party and got a role and stood and got it. But actually, when you talk about your journey, you've come from, a fantastic background and strategy framework, and then, built up towards you having an understanding of the command authority, and then to deliver as the mayor has been phenomenal. And I think it's important for people to realise actually where your politics comes from, because a lot of the members of parliaments and politicians out there, people don't really realise where their politics actually come from. So I think this is really important. But Richard, you've been a mayor now for over a year. So we're based in East Birmingham, we're in Nesby Youth Centre today. Every area of the West Midlands, we've got areas that are deprived. We've got child poverty, we've got highest youth unemployment, various other issues. So can you just tell me a bit about, in the last year or so, what key things you feel that you're quite proud of, that you've already delivered in the first year? And what are your plans now for your term? Because, you're already, Richard, you've got another 4 years, is it? And before you know it, it's going to be another election. So I'm sure you want to build that legacy and sort of say, okay, here's my goals. This is what I want to have in terms of a positive impact for our region and areas like East Birmingham, essentially. So what's your sort of goals for areas like East Birmingham and Alum Rock?
No, that's a really good question. So we made a difference, I would say, and this is not the bit of politics that lots of people are aware of. So I spent quite a lot of time fixing the foundations. I inherited an organisation that wasn't structured or organised to deliver for me. So we've had to look at the way we do things. So I've got different priorities to my predecessor, and I'm going about things in a different way. So I'll say that so I am a collaborative leader. I know I'm mayor and I'm the figurehead and the face of the region, but I can only get things delivered through a board if the 7 leaders of the council support me. So I have put a lot of effort in to building really good relationships with each of the 7 council leaders in the West Midlands. They're 4 Labour, 3 Conservative, and I'm really pleased with the relationships we built. So,
Right.
And outside the board meetings, we meet at least once a month. We're meeting on Friday this week to discuss the most important issues facing the region, because I want us on the same page on the most important issues. Because if we do that, we can work collectively to address those issues. And that's really important, because I need these teams of politicians to work as a team and be part of a team and get to know each other. And the issue is, respect their politics, they want the same things for the places they represent. So you can just imagine how pleased I was when the first meeting we've ever had in that forum, that the leaders collectively made youth unemployment the biggest priority, which is one of my biggest priorities. That's fantastic. Knowing that we're all pulling together is really important. The other issue is that I thought the first meeting we had in this forum was good. I chaired it. I give myself 6 out of 10. It went well. I hadn't realised the leaders had never met in the previous 8 years that way before. These discussions in this open forum. And one of the leaders messaged me afterwards to say, thank you for that brilliant meeting. It's the first time we met like that. Thank you for your openness and for opening up the combined authority in a way I could only have dreamed of. Amazing. So I thought, gosh, this is, we're making a difference here. We're doing things in that way. So that's really important. So for me, beyond the things I want to do differently, it's very important that we create the right organisation, the right culture, the right behaviours in order to give us that platform to make progress on. That's really important to me. Now, in terms of things we've done, I'm really pleased that, so I've got, so I will emphasise I've got 4 big policy priorities, and they are about jobs for everyone. I want to create an economy here where everyone can succeed and access to opportunity is available to everyone irrespective of their backgrounds. That is embedded in my own personal experience and drives my politics. I've talked about homes for everyone. I want to ensure that people in this region, everyone has access to a warm, safe, secure home at a price they can afford. And that's why I'm delivering the biggest programme of social and affordable housing we've seen for decades. Transport for everyone, we've got to make sure the transport is accessible to everyone. That's why I'm bringing the buses back into public control. Fantastic. And we're going through a franchising system. And I've got to have an economy here that works for everyone. And what I mean by that is I want to see the benefits of economic growth embedded in and benefit all of our communities. That's a platform I'm standing on. So we've already sort of made progress on the buses. On the skills and jobs agenda, I've committed to creating 20,000 new placements and training opportunities for our young people. Brilliant. Businesses have signed up to around 6,500 of those already. We've got more work to do. We've got a fantastic programme called Path to Apprenticeship that is helping young people who are 19 plus, who've not been in educational employment for 2 or 3 years, get access to a training opportunity, a guaranteed interview, and the first cohort, 2 cohorts have all got apprenticeships, changing people's lives. And I've met many of those young people face to face, and I've listened to their experiences, and they've had very, very difficult backgrounds. And that opportunity is giving them a self-belief and a confidence that is changing their lives, often from families that have been out of work for 2 or 3 generations. And if we can get those young people back into work, we can turn the page for another 3 or 4 generations. And most importantly for me, truly the only way I can help some of our young people in this region get better lives is giving them access to jobs and work. So that's really, really important for me. On the economy, we're preparing submissions to the Chancellor Exchequer's spending a statement on the 11th of June. We want to see big investment in Metro running through centre of Birmingham, through to Digbeth and out to where Stephen Knight's building film studios, out to the Sports Quarter, where Tom Wagner's invested in Birmingham City. I know it's not your football club, but
Yeah, let's not talk about that. But they did a grand job, by the way.
it
So it's
is.
good. It's great for the city.
It is. And then, our ambition then is to run that metro through East Birmingham, North Solihull to Solihull, connecting some of our most disadvantaged communities in Birmingham.
Yeah.
That's really important. We've also got 3 investment zones in the region, one in Coventry, one in the centre of Birmingham, one in Black Country and Wolverhampton. Those 3 investment zones are seeking to attract £5 billion of investment and create 30,000 jobs. And I've been really clear, those jobs need to go to young people training, living and learning in the region. So that's a real focus on that. On housing, I inherited a position where my predecessor had delivered 46 units of social housing in 7 or 8 years. We've committed to 500 already in my first year.
Amazing.
I'm hoping to announce another 1,000 over the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic.
We have done more in 1 year, actually 100 times more by the end than my predecessor did. In 8 years. So really, really important, because when I've been out to our most vulnerable communities, I meet families that I went to a school in inner city Birmingham one day when one of the 2 kids at the school were made homeless because their mother was evicted by a rogue landlord overnight, and the teachers had to contribute to a kitty, so those kids stayed in the hotel that week. Now, that happens every week in this city. I have committed to a programme of 20,000 new social housing as fast as possible, so we can get every one of those families and every one of those children out of poverty. That's really important to me, because I know that for children in those situations, the prospect of learning at school and leaving school with a good education is made far more difficult if you're living in housing that's not fit for purpose. So that's a big commitment on that. Making progress on skills and on transport. And on the economy, as I said, my big platform is not just growing this economy, but ensuring that every community benefits from that growth. So that's the direction of travel. I'm pleased with the progress. There's more to do. And behind the scenes, every day I'm working to help people in this region. I've been working with the government and people at Jaguar Land Rover to make sure that the impact of the tariffs with the US was dealt with properly. I'm really pleased the Prime Minister came to visit JLR twice in Solihull, and then I was invited there the day he announced the new trade deal. That trade deal was estimated to have saved 35,000 jobs in this region. Really, really important. And that behind the scenes, working on that with the government, with JLR, was really, really important. Stuff that's not in the headlines every day, but if it didn't get the focus it deserved, we would have let people of this region down. And I'm currently working with Stephen Knight, supporting his plans for Digbeth and film studios, because those film studios don't just employ famous actors, they employ hundreds of people. I went there to Digbeth when he was filming Peaky Blinders. There were 500 people working on the set that day. So if we can develop a film studio business here and a creative industry here, it offers opportunities to hundreds and hundreds of young people, because every day you're filming, you need lighting engineers, you need plumbers, you need hospitality, technicians, all these other people around you to make it work. So everything we're doing every day is about driving that agenda forward. And towards the end of June, we'll be publishing our regional growth plan. We'll set down on paper the way in which we're going to develop our economy over the next 10 years and the actions and interventions we need to make to ensure that as young people in places like this where we are today benefit from the growth we're going to deliver.
Absolutely fantastic. I think, Richard, we've covered everything that I really wanted to cover. One of the main reasons for the Game Changers podcast was actually to talk about game changers in the region. People have actually changed the game, and you've truly done that. Aspirational stuff that you're talking about, some of the stuff that you already delivered has been, fantastic. And I just feel that we're going to obviously follow you on your journey. And we want to make sure that, especially for us as an organisation, young people are at the forefront, because they're our future generation, and the skills and jobs, the economics, the housing, it's all actually young people, because young people will need housing when they go forward. They get onto the property ladder, they need jobs and skills, they need, work experience, and then jobs and apprenticeships at the end of it. So I think it's fantastic in terms of, what you're talking about and the vision for the actual region. And we're just wishing you all the best. And I just want to say thank you for coming onto the Game Changers podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to meeting some of the young people outside. Yep, in a
Absolutely.
minute or two. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.